Ooh, that looks tasty. Support for Boards and Brews comes from Sovereignty. Play board games in a 3D environment on any device. Play smarter. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another episode of Boards and Brews. And this time, for the first time, we have a returning guest. And we have Mark Dainty from Not Board Gaming. Now, I got to be honest. I was planning to have Mark come back on at some point, but not this early. Unfortunately, the other guests I had lined up had things come up and they had to cancel. So Mark was kind enough to jump way up in the line. And today, well, we're going to talk about some grumpy old men stuff is what we're going to do. But before we do that, you're only going to get half the rapid fire questions, Mark, because there may be a few people that did not listen to that very first episode, which I can't blame.
Why?
The sound is horrible. Like, if
right,
you go back
okay. That's down to you, though, yeah?
Well, I mean, the things I say are brilliant. The way the audio is for me, and then both your audio and what you say is horrible.
Yeah,
on your side. But so I'll just give you two. Who the crap are you? What is your outlet? And what is your shtick?
Wow. Okay. So who the crap am I? I'm Mark Dainty, as Will said. I live in the UK. I live in Sheffield in the UK. So there's a bit of a time difference here. My channel is Not Board Gaming. That's BORED. And it's a solo and soloable focused YouTube channel. I say we, and I always say we, but it's me. It is literally
it's
me.
very, very British, right? The royal we.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But it is definitely just me and my multiple personalities. Even my imaginary friends don't really speak to me, to tell you the truth. But anyway, it's me covering solo and soloable games, doing reviews, previews, unboxings, but mainly reviews and previews, and the very odd interview and playthrough thrown in here or there. And they're generally, as you can tell from the amount of time I've been speaking now, kind of long form. I do like to talk a little bit. So generally somewhere between the 30 and 60 minute mark as well.
The only person out there that can take 60 minutes to talk about how to play war.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure Michael Kelly could really go on about how you play war games, couldn't he? So,
well, he chose not to be here, so.
Well, we asked him, yeah, and it's great that you've got me back as a returning guest, and then you kind of caveat that by saying, actually, everybody else I asked was busy.
No, they weren't busy. They canceled.
They canceled, yeah.
That's not true, because they asked to reschedule is what they did. That's what it was.
Yeah, okay, fine. So you scraped the bottom of the barrel with me. Thank you.
I did, because that is true. We did also ask Michael Kelly to join us, and he was too busy with, I don't know,
washing his hair or something like that. Yeah. So
his back hair, washing his back hair.
What is his new nickname now? What did somebody call him fairly recently? Arrogant Snotface. That's what he's going to be known from now on, isn't it? So
yeah, it was funny. I'm not going to give the person who, because actually that person has commented on both of our channels before, very, very angrily.
Oh yeah.
But this bird has this long diatribe about stuff that, maybe you could say that, well, maybe they have a point there. And then they end it with, and you're an arrogant. Okay, arrogant. That's fine. You can call someone arrogant.
Yeah. Snotface. Yeah, it's kind of, that whole argument then just kind of suddenly subsides a little bit there, doesn't it? Yeah.
What is your brewed beverage today? So in honor of you and your people, I have some lovely Earl Grey tea. Twinings or Twinings, however you say
Twinings,
yeah. Which is over 300 years old. I know that because the tea bag told me.
Yeah.
And in my Omicron Protocol swag mug.
Look at that, eh? That's very, very nice. And aren't you in that game as well? You are in that game.
I am. I just found that, you know what? Because I'm going to talk about it. It's actually on my table. But
okay.
There it is.
Oh, man, look at that. Your own tile.
And even though my donut shop burned, I recovered with the chicken truck.
Oh, man. Look at that. That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Hungry Coop or Hungry Co-op for the co-op version of that.
Brilliant.
Very exciting.
So Earl Grey tea, Twinings Earl Grey is my wife just drinks tea, and it's her favourite drink of all time. So that's literally how she survives and subsists herself throughout the day. But kind of returning the favour in honour of our transatlantic friendship here, I apologise. I've gone for Budweiser. The pickings were slim. It's kind of warm in the UK here today, and I did come on board with a lemon soda, San Pellegrino, and Will was like, no, it needs to be something brewed. So I found in the bottom of the bag a very warm kind of Budweiser, and I shall be consuming that at some point.
Yeah, but you guys like warm beer.
Not lagers, not beer. I mean, it's ales. Yes, Budweiser isn't an ale. It's some kind of fizzy brewed hoppy thing. I don't know.
It's urine.
It's okay. It's kind of light. It's fine. Yeah. Look,
It's really
your country. Your country
really
thrives on it. Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't get it. And not even Bud Light. You might as well get Bud Light because then it's more watery. Makes it better.
Even less taste.
That should be their slogan. Now with less taste.
Now with less taste.
Let's just get right to it. All right, but okay. So actually moving on, Pat, like that's the fastest tangent I think we've had ever.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there'll be more though.
Oh, for absolutely. So the start of the question. Now, when last time you were here, this was at the end of the episode. But everyone told me I was podcasting wrong, and we have to start early with the games that we've been playing lately. So the two-half question. One, what have you been playing lately? And then the second part, what's on your table right now?
Okay.
So, wow. Those are probably two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, I've managed to learn in the last kind of 7 days some new games and quite a few new games. So I got the prototype for Green Hell, the board game. So based on a really popular video game, and it comes out to Kickstarter later this month. So I've been learning and playing that, and it really is tough as balls. It's a rock hard survival, resource management, collect resources, exploration type game. I also I learned Merv, the solo version of Merv, which I thought was really, really good as well. I've only played it once so far, but I kind of enjoyed that. I thought it was good fun.
Well, what kind of game is that for?
It is. Merv is it's a full-on crunchy Euro. You are essentially trading spices and various things to try and get the most number of victory points in this kind of principality of Merv, this ancient city. So you're moving up on the market track or on the influence track or the other tracks, can't remember what they're called, and you're trading. If anybody's played Lisboa, and there's a section in Lisboa where you kind of, if you've got a meeple at the top of the board, you'll activate the houses on the rows there and crosswise. And it's a similar part in that game. There's a central part of the board. And you activate certain buildings on there to create resources, etc. And then you get attacked by forces at the end of the second and third round. I really enjoyed it. I think the solo play is different to the multiplayer, but the solo felt like it was a really good puzzle. I'm looking forward to getting that back out again. I got Resident Evil 3 Kickstarter, which I backed last year. And I played that.
Did you also get Resident Evil 2?
No, never played Resident Evil 2. Was
there even a Resident Evil 1, or did this go straight to 2?
No, so apparently Resident Evil is coming out next year. It's coming to Kickstarter next year. So there's a little leaflet in it saying Resident Evil is coming to Kickstarter next year. Resident Evil 3, yeah. I think fans of the game may like it, but people that aren't fans of the IP might like it. People that aren't fans of the IP,
yeah, because that's very astute. Fans of the game will like it.
Yeah,
aren't fans of the game won't.
So fans of the IP, William, fans of the IP might like it. Anybody who's not a massive fan of the IP, I'm certainly not. I played it obviously growing up in my youth. Oh, it's a very functional game. It's not really exciting me. I thought it was okay when I first started playing it, and now kind of 3-4 scenarios in, I'm finding it a little bit move. Just kind of the clockwork nature of it is just not very exciting. So yeah, and then the game I've been playing this week, and I've just done the video this morning, but my Mac is throwing up all sorts of problems while I'm trying to upload it. Is the game that's on my table is Beyond the Rift, the Perdition's Mouth card game, which is a kind of dungeon crawling card game. Each game is 1 to 4 players, fully co-op. You can play true solo or multi-handed solo. Plays in about 30 minutes per scenario. Really good I mean, really good really good dungeon crawling game in the Perdition's Mouth universe. So yeah, when my Mac decides it's going to actually let me upload the video, that'll be online.
For everybody who doesn't know, there is no Mac.
No,
he doesn't have a channel.
not.
This is just some guy that Zoom bombed my
yeah. Well, the fact that I was, guest number, requested guest number 473 after everybody else said no, then, that's fine.
77, 477.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Now, so is the Perdition's Mouth game, is it kind of along the lines of the Pathfinder Adventure card game, that kind of game?
I couldn't tell you. I've never played Pathfinder Adventure card game, so...
Well, that was good.
That went nowhere. That kind of stopped right
It sounded
there.
Good.
It did sound good. Made you sound knowledgeable and me sound like I don't play games. So yeah, no idea. It is you play a character. You have a deck of cards. You're fighting bad guys, bringing them into your area. You kind of not cycling your cards, but using your cards, using action points to play the particular cards. It's quite exciting. Really snappy, fast game. I'm enjoying it a lot. Definitely.
Yeah, I overall enjoyed Perdition's Mouth, the dungeon crawl game.
Yeah.
I thought it did some interesting stuff. Mostly the way that you just got weaker and weaker as you went through, which kind of brought out made it feel a little more visceral and real, right? Because we're climbing down in this bug cave, which I would never do. I'd send you happily. All right, going.
And that's the same here. In the campaign that comes with it, you will gum up your hands as your character progresses and gets more wounds and fatigue. Then your chances of being more successful throughout the entire campaign start to dwindle. So they've followed through with a lot of same thematic touches from Perdition's Mouth, stripped away a lot of the stuff that potentially they didn't need, obviously, because it's a it's a fast card game, and made a really good game. And even that response deck that a lot of people don't like in Perdition's Mouth, I didn't mind it so much, but that response deck works really, really well for the card game.
So I got a whole bunch of stuff I've been playing lately, and I've recently been on a trip, and so I got to actually play games in meat space with some other people. The aforementioned Mr. Arrogant Snotface, and also a Don from the Secret Cabal, who's also been a guest on the show. And so played a couple games with Don, but the one that really stuck out that I really love is a Skulk Hollow, which I got over my shoulder right there.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a really, really fun head-to-head asymmetric card-based, I'm going to call it a skirmish game. Not really. You get a tiny little board with only 9 spaces on it, but it's one player plays the faction of the foxes, little fox people, and it's their kingdom, and the other person plays one of the monsters. I don't know I can't remember what they're actually called in the game, but there's 4 or 5 different these big old monsters that you're able to play, and each one of them is totally unique, the powers it has. But the foxes are kind of playing a Shadow of the Colossus. I don't know if you know that video game.
Yep.
That kind of thing where they actually have to get to you and kind of start climbing up you and start damaging you. And as they hurt you, it takes away some of your abilities, and either they kill you or you accomplish your personal objective, or kill their king, whatever it might be. So that game, I really like that one. I wish there was a solo mode, but there's not. So I played a lot of that one. I've been playing a game called Flamecraft, which is
the Peter Vaughan game,
from a Cardboard Alchemy, and it's a kind of worker placement, resource management, contract fulfillment type game, but it has this just utterly adorable little dragon art that you have, which either you will like, or you won't. It's one of the two. Either you like cute little cartoon dragons that are going around and baking bread and doing stuff, because you're playing kind of like the headhunter for I'm talking about a job headhunter, not a cool headhunter.
Not an actual headhunter.
For these dragons, you get them and you're going to place them in places where they want to work. The bread, there's like, if you're a dragon named Toast, you want to go work at a bakery, right? Like, that's what you do.
So help them warm the bread.
Exactly. So anyhow, very clever little game, as each shop you send them to, it has different, abilities that you can activate, and each dragon that you place into play in a shop, it lets you activate an ability which starts moving things around. And it's a very, well, I've only played a few times, but it's a very family friendly, light worker placement. Looks good on the table game. And then the other thing I've been playing a lot lately is a Vast Mysterious Manor, which I love that game. It's got the pure asymmetricness that you get in Root, some the same company as Root, except it's on a smaller scale. So the player so you're in this manor, and the paladin's going into the manor. Why? To destroy the evil. And the evil is either the spider sorceress, so it can be a sorcerer, a spider, or the giant spider, a bunch of little spiders, or with the expansion, it can be the shadow paladin. And you can also be just a knight instead of the paladin with that. They're going to do that. The evil just wants to get out of the manor. The person playing the manor wants to lock everybody in forever. So it's kind of like you in this podcast. You're just trapped in here to let you know. The skeletons want to kill the paladin. And then there's this little warlock that's just kind of in there doing its own things. Like I can gain power and just everybody leave me alone. So, and it's all this different, everyone has different goals, like in Root. But unlike Root, there is no core game that everyone's playing that is the same at all.
Okay.
When you play Root, you score points pretty much the same way. And you're all going to win by scoring 30 points. In this one, it is completely ace. There is, if you know how to play the spider, you know literally nothing about how to play any of the others. It's not like go ahead.
Is that like what happens with Merchant's Cove then? I mean, I've only played Merchant's Cove once on the TTS. On TTS with
that's a sign of age right there, buddy.
When you start putting the definitive article in front of things,
the TTS on the internet.
On the internet, so,
which you access through the computer.
So only played the Merchant's Cove once on the TTS with you guys, but I know that was highly asymmetrical. So would you say kind of Vast is
I would say out of those three games, Merchant's Cove is the least disparate, because you still have that core center selling game.
Well, I suppose, which
is all the same. And then in Root, if you know how to play the cats, you don't know how to play the birds, but at least you understand that anytime the birds destroys one of your things, that's going to get them 1 point closer. Okay. And if they're taking stuff off of their board and player board and putting it onto the board, that is bad for you. Yeah. They're getting points. In Vast, it's even less.
Right.
Even less with what you know. I mean, you have a rough idea. If they're putting stuff out on the board, it's probably going to help them, but that's not necessarily going to make them win. So for me, I really, really enjoy it. I've always liked it more than Root. Mostly, I think it's because of it's the smaller scale. Like if you play the skeletons, you control 5 little skeletons. That's it. That's all you have. The board feels smaller, more compact. So I really, really enjoy that one. But what I have on my table right now, I got 2 things on my table right now because I have 2 tables. One, I got a game called Backyard Chickens, which my wife and I are going to play later on. It's a coming Kickstarter, and it is a deck builder about keeping chickens in your backyard. And
I mean, there's no kind of talk about burying the lead in the name of the game. Right? There, it really is, isn't it? Yeah,
it is exactly what you think it is. You got your chickens. You got to make sure that you're feeding your chickens. You got to keep them watered. And if you're clever enough, you can give them their favorite treat, and they're happier. And as they're happier, they give you more eggs because you need the eggs, and the eggs are your income. So you're like bartering eggs to get stuff, to make it all. It's a deck builder, pretty much a pure deck builder. You can go back, think about a Dominion style type deck builder. Though you don't have you don't have that kind of clogging your hand up with money cards. All of the cards you have are used for something. When you use that, you'll get your chickens, and you have to manage those chickens so they get more eggs. And of course, eggs are how you buy things, and you get points based on your chickens. And the more chickens that you have, the more points that you have. But that's kind of a sliding scale that goes up and down. So if your chicken runs away because you're not feeding it, and they do run away if you don't feed it long enough, like first they get unhappy and then they're like, I'm out, which I find kind of funny. Then your points go down. So you have to keep them all happy enough, or at least not running away until you've hit the point threshold.
So when they're unhappy, are they in a foul mood?
They are in a very foul mood, and they give you fewer eggs.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, that's good. I don't have a follow up. I feel like we've beaten this pun.
Oh dear me! Yeah. My brain's a bit scrambled right now.
And so, I guess kind of the core of it. It's a game that, if you enjoy deck builder, it can be a competitive deck builder. There is a solo mode.
Yeah.
If you enjoy competitive deck builders, that has a different theme, like it's there's no monsters you're killing. There's none of that. It's just this nice kind of gentle. We got chickens in the back, and we like our chickens. Then it's right up your alley. If you like deck builders and you like chickens, it's right up your alley.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose it's a bit of a niche market, isn't it? People that like chickens and deck builders, but they exist. So yeah, why not? What's the other game that's on your table then?
So the other one is Omicron Protocol, which I just, before we started, finished the raw footage of the how to play video that I'm making.
Right. Okay.
And it is, so I'll show this. This is just the rules reference. Like this is just because this is a miniatures skirmish game, and so
okay,
it's
so how many players is it? 2+?
1 to 4. 1 to 4.
Oh, it's soloable, is it? Right. Okay.
Yeah, it is. They have a colo. Yes. See, that's it. Solo co-op. They're colo games.
Colo games.
And they do have a solo co-op mode, which is you're able to take just one of the factions and just play it against the neutral third party. There's a neutral third party in the game. So if we were actually playing against each other, we each have our own unique faction that's really, really different. I mean, it's a miniatures game. So, I mean, miniature skirmish game, you get the box, you get everything. But with those games, it's always very asymmetric what each faction does. Like if you're playing a 40K or something, the Space Marines and the Orcs, they all do different things. But there's also this third party that spawns and is roaming around the board throughout the game, that every time you've activated one of your characters, they make this electromagnetic noise, which draws these monsters or whatever to you based on how much you make. That's the radius. But so if you've done that, then I get to control them to come mess with you on my turn.
Okay, sounds cool.
Yeah, you get to control them to come attack me. But they also have in the solo mode, you can play through all these scenarios with a single faction against the game. And then when you play it just against the game, just as third party, they give all of the different, they're called sims.
Right.
Different abilities that they get.
Yeah.
And so they start stacking up based on the 5-6 different types that there are, different models, different types. They get different types of abilities. And the more that you have, the more of them that are out there, the more abilities that they have. And so as you knock them out, they start losing abilities. So,
okay.
And yeah, so that's that one. There's a lot. It's probably the most complicated game that I have. It's not complicated to be complicated. It's just complicated because it's a miniatures game, and those are complicated. But there is no measuring in it. It's all hex based.
Okay. Oh man. Oh, okay. Are you a little bit disappointed by that? Did you want to get your ruler out? Straight edge or
no? Okay. I don't. I've had a slight desire to try one of those games like Rangers of Shadow Deep lately, just because I have so many miniatures. I have them for all these games. There's a slight desire to kind of try one. But in general, no, and especially not if I'm playing a competitive game. Let me just look at the board and count hexes.
Somebody who follows my channel, a guy called Lee Anderton, he sent me through the Elder Scrolls
system
miniatures
that you met on
the mail
internet
system.
Internet on the YouTube.
He sent me through the Elder Scrolls miniatures game, whatever that's called. Another one. Anyway, yeah, and that came through with loads of miniatures, and I got a big map for it, and I read through all the rules, thought it sounded great, and then I've just not had time to play it as of yet. So, yeah, I kind of it's one of the things I want to do. I want to take a break from creating some content at some point. Maybe take a month or two and just play games, just for playing games again. Remember what that was? Yeah, and just play games just for a bit of fun for a couple of months before I go back to it. And maybe when I do that, that's when I'll play the Elder Scrolls miniatures game. Can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's called the Elder Scrolls miniatures game.
Well, there we go. Yeah,
that is always a kind of a tough thing. Like, I really want to play the other Alter Quest campaign. I played the expansion campaign all the way through before I reviewed it, and I want to go back and play the other one. I just haven't gotten to it because stuff keeps showing up. Which is a good thing. Like Madara.
Yeah, it's first world problem.
Up, which is I'm really enjoying that. Chronicles of Drunagor just showed up the other day.
So I must back that, I think.
Yeah, so I
but then again, I was going to say, then again, do I want to back another large-scale campaign game because I've got that many? I've got Madara like you, and it's one of my constant regrets. I just don't get to play it enough. It takes a long time to set up. I've got to leave it on the table for a few days because you can't just play one game and put it away. And yeah, so as much as Chronicles of Drunagor or whatever it's called looks great, I'm just thinking maybe large-scale campaign games, I don't need many more of them right now.
Well, yeah, you just got to finish one and send it out. I mean, that's what I've decided I'm going to do with them. I'm pointing, like you can see. What I've decided I'm going to do with Alter Quest when I do finish play the next campaign, I'll probably move it on. And it's not because I don't like it. I think it was I ranked it my number 7 dungeon crawl. But it's a big box, and I have other big boxes, and it wasn't my 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. So and everyone promptly told me that Chronicles of Drunagor had to be on that list, so I got a copy to try.
But Alter Quest is a weird one because a lot of people had it and moved it on. I mean, it shifted around. Like, you see it a lot on the forums that people that potentially didn't enjoy it as much as they thought they were going to. And I think it is. I like Alter Quest. I don't quite love it, but I like it. I did love it, and then I think all of the upkeep just started to become a little bit too much.
What's up, Bubba?
He's. I think somebody's at the door, so the Bubba started barking. And I do want to play it more, but also it intimidates me a little bit because I know I've just got to spread it out on the table. I think that's what put people off. It was almost too much, and modular deck system and upkeep for people. It's like maybe the Saddlers should have just reined it back a little bit on Alter Quest.
Yeah, if you're gonna play that especially playing solo with more than 2 characters, it's impossible. It's too much. And it's tough because space, that huge board. Well, I like the huge board, but there's something that's hard about just starting to just lay your cards out on the board because you're never going to use all those rooms.
Yeah.
In any given game, but it's hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very tough. But anyhow, we've covered this ad nauseum. So our topic today is the things that grind our gears in the board game industry. Now, we haven't talked about this. I literally sent this message like last night. I was like, hey, let's talk about this. And so just totally broad. It can be crowdfunding, it can be reviewer, it can be as a consumer, whatever you got. So what's your first thing that grinds your gears?
I think this is kind of topical based on the video I did recently for the Resident Evil board game. And you see it in various board games as well. I think Barrage had issues with this, is you get a great and well-produced game, fantastically well-produced game, and it has one crappy component where they just drop the ball so spectacularly that it's unbelievable that the rest of the game shines so much. And it's like, why have you done this? And you can make excuses for this, but why not follow that train of thought right through? So with Resident Evil, you get all these wonderful miniatures, you get all the tiles, the artwork's been massively improved. You get these wonderful cards, you get game trays in there. And then a key component that you will get out every game is a dashboard. And this dashboard tracks where you are in the campaign, and you put cards on there, and you're having a look at where you are. And it's printed on paper. It's on paper. Wait, let me show you. because people need to know this is not acceptable. So there we go. There's a fantastic looking Resident Evil 3 box. And you get all this wonderful stuff, great rule books, minis, game trays, etc. This is the dashboard. This crappy piece of paper. When you open the box, it says, this game contains scenes of explicit violence and gore. And you think it's something you can throw away, not an integral part of the game. But it is absolutely an integral part of the game, and it's printed on paper.
And for the people who are just listening, so you understand, this is not even like a piece of cardstock or even piece of printer paper. This is like the advertisement glossy stuff that shows up in your mailbox sometimes. It's that kind of thin paper.
Local pizza parlors would have thicker paper than this, basically, when they're playing their wares to you. So I think that, you know, when we look at, and certainly on Kickstarter, and I think when I posted my video on this and, you know, commented on this on BGG, some of the feedback is people making excuses for Steamforged games. Oh, it's down to the coronavirus and, you know, not being able to get parts from it, X, Y, and Z, or maybe this would have made the game too expensive.
One more piece of cardboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on a whatever it is, $100 game. Yeah, or you know, the thing people kept repeating to me, just laminate it, and that's not the point, is it? Let's face it. I don't spend 65 quid, 80 quid, whatever, on a Kickstarter, or $100 on a Kickstarter, for me then to have to go and laminate an integral part of it. So crappy components in games, you know, that really bugs me a lot. What about you?
I'm going to go with my first one. And you reminded me of it when you were talking about the game trays. So I love a game that has a good insert, game trays, all this stuff, but it drives me off the wall, up the wall, whatever, off my rocker. If I don't know where the stuff goes,
that happened. That's in Resident Evil. There's no instructions on where to put it as well. Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes the game trays will have game trays. Sorry, got to get that
Z.
The Z, as you would say.
Z. We would say Z. Yes.
Sometimes it'll be like on the plastic. It'll kind of have the form in there, like the token or whatever goes in there. That's great. I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
Those are there. But sometimes you just get it. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just gonna try.
And the thing is, when game trays design these trays for particular games, they will obviously provide the publisher with a diagram or whatever of where things are going to go. It has to go there, and it can't be that much of a hassle for the publisher to put that somewhere on the lid, on the inside of the box lid, wherever it needs to go. But for crying out loud, to give you the jigsaw puzzle, it's just, you know, it's unforgivable.
Yeah. You know, it's funny on the flip side. The same company that published Skulk Hollow, they have another small box game called The 100 Tory. And they included a how to pack it up in the box. It didn't even have an insert. It's just got one of those inserts that's like the one little piece of cardboard on the side. And even in that, it said, this is how you stack it. So it's lovely and fits. And clearly it can't be that hard to do because that game literally doesn't need it. And they did it.
Yeah.
Great. And I just, one of the other ones I just got, the Chronicles of Drunagor. As I was going through, I actually posted online a couple of places. I was like, I feel like I have a lot of space left over in here. Like, am I?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And I was like, am I missing something? Am I missing that? And of course, someone's like, well, you could always just count the components. Like, I know I can count the components, dude. I could, but I don't want to go and because in this game there are, I don't know, 4 little rows in this tray. That's like this long for anybody watching. I don't know. My fingers are like, just listening. I mean, or maybe six inches apart or so. And it gets filled up with tokens the size of a dime, you know, an American dime, which I don't know what's analogous to that size in England, but not small. Like, it's full of those. I don't want to count those. Someone can just say, like, I could say, hey, Mark, am I supposed to have a paper thin player dashboard Resident Evil? You could say.
Yes. Yeah. You know,
but yeah. So that on the one hand, I appreciate having all the extra space because as of when I think that's what it is. But because I can then put expansions there if I get them, I like that. Which brings to the next thing. I really get this is me being so picky, but it really grinds my gears when I start getting expansions and I have to keep all the boxes because I can't consolidate. Like I get it. Sometimes you get a lot of stuff. You need 2 boxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I want to consolidate. And it's just,
Yep.
mm,
See, I used to go through that phase where, because it was, it was an expansion, it was a printed box, and box looked nice, I had to keep the box. But now, if I can get rid of as many boxes as possible, everything's going in the base box as much as possible, basically, for me. Yeah, space is a premium.
yeah, I have not come quite to the point where I'm throwing away inserts.
Right.
I mean, every now and then, for some I will. But so, for
Yeah.
example, Merchant's Cove, for example, has a solid insert. It's not game trays, but a pretty solid insert. And I just saw somebody posted that by throwing away the insert, they were able to get all of it, the whole thing, all the expansions. And there's the secret stash box. There's a secret in the secret stash box, so you can't get rid of that box. Even the box in the box, the whole thing
Goes in there.
And I'm like, ooh,
yeah.
I might
People are clever.
Not us.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
All right, so that's my second one. The kind of this the not being able to consolidate, which is really nitpicky because I know people their spaces at a premium, so they design the box to hold everything.
Yeah.
Get it set. Though I do appreciate like Dwellings of Eldervale up here. Like no matter what version you have, the box is the same size.
Absolutely, yeah. It's got spaces in there, and you know what those spaces are for. Those spaces obviously painfully remind you that you should have bought the next version up, or you should have bought the legendary version. But they're in there, and you know where everything needs to go. All the game trays have got little icons on there. It's great, and that is like almost. I can understand why it's so expensive, basically because of all the thought that went into exactly what goes into those boxes.
All right, so what's the next thing that grinds your gears?
Errata. Errata. I feel so we're in a fairly privileged position. We get to obviously speak about board games a lot, and we get to interact sometimes with publishers, etc. And when we get games through, or we're in various forums about things, when a game's just been released, then somebody will say to you, or the publisher will say, "Oh, right, go online and check the errata or check the FAQs online because it's different to the rule that's in the game." And that's okay. It's an annoyance because I don't live on my laptop. I don't live on my, on the computer, etc. And I don't necessarily want to troll through BGG to find out what the publisher couldn't be asked to check in the rules before it went out. But it's becoming more and more commonplace now as well. And I know that's slightly understandable as games are more complex, that, things are bound to be missed, but it's almost like almost every release now has something missing in the rule book that then needs to be picked up. And it makes me worry about people who potentially are casual buyers of board games, who are not looking on BGG, who aren't on the forum. So, for example, Empyrean Classics.
That's the one I was just thinking about because I was just and it's a game that I've thought about picking that up. And I haven't, but I did enter a contest to win a free one. So
there we go. There we go.
That. But yeah, I've heard that there is a major rule not in the rule book.
Not in the rule book for solo play, which makes it practically unwinnable as a solo gamer.
Have you thought about that you're just bad at games?
Oh, I'm utterly terrible at games. There's no denying that. Yeah, that's why I love telling people how bad they are at designing them or how good they are at designing them, because I'm shite at playing them. It's that is a massive one. That's a massive omission that's in the rule book. Now, of course, the publisher Osprey Games and everybody that's involved in the game, your David Turkey, your Nigel Buckle, anybody that's had any involvement in the game will tell you go and check the errata online. But it really makes me worry about the occasional buyers, the people that aren't ingrained in the industry. And I think that publishers need to do more to pick up on that. I don't know at what stage in the process proofreading stops. I'm sure there are many reasons why this happens, but it seems to happen with alarming, with an increasing amount of regularity, and an alarmingly increasing amount of regularity. And the fallback position is, just go on BGG and look at the updated rules. It's not good enough.
Yeah, no, and I wonder if I wonder if it happens because of kind of these timelines and just not fully either going through and doing enough of the play testing of all the different interactions that you can have. Like, for example, the game being vast, it has a lot of stuff that's you got to get clarifications on. It's just the rulebook's not great. It's not the worst, but it's not great. So I wonder if that this stuff they just legitimately don't know that this is too powerful and they have to errata it later. Or I wonder if it's because it's hard to write a rule book. I mean, leaving out a major rule, that's not that's just a boneheaded move. But it's just hard. And I think we often think when we know the game that, well, this is very clear. But if you don't have somebody else out there going through it and saying, you know what, I don't know, I have no idea, that they miss it. And people don't want to hire a rule book editor. That's they should. That's just another cost. Like I was just playing the Flamecraft game with my wife.
Yeah,
she was looking at the player aid, which is that's gonna segue me into my next one in a minute. But with the little player aid card, and she kept forgetting the first step. She just kept saying, you have to move your dragon, and it's just because it's on the player aid, but the way it's arranged for someone who has no idea how to play, you just don't see it. You don't understand that's what it's saying. And I was able to send to the publisher, Peter Vaughn, and say, hey, this was my wife's experience. And he's like, oh, I had no idea. And so they're going to adjust it, which is great. But
that's great. It's still in development, and that's great. That's exactly what you want.
But because he knows how to play the game, because I knew how to play the game going in. I played it on TTS. I never saw it. It never occurred to me. And I think that might be what happens is they don't get the eyes on it, or maybe they do, but not early enough to catch.
So I think then this kind of segues into obviously what you're going to speak about next, but also back into my first one regarding components and inferior components, is that the age of the errata is not going away. It's become an accepted norm. And it's like, we as the buying public have decided that it's okay for publishers to get rule books incorrect, because we will pick it up in the errata afterwards. You go back to the inferior board game piece, like the piece of paper in Resident Evil. If we accept stuff like that, then suddenly it's going to be okay, because publishers will say, right, they're fine. They'll go off and laminate it on their own. And I think, I think we just have to be mindful of as a board game society, of saying, actually, no, let's just push this back a little bit. If your rules aren't good enough, then you need to do something about it. For example, Root and the Clockwork expansion for Root from Leader Games. The Electric Eerie rules were wrong in the rule book, and the boards were printed wrong. Now, what they didn't do is they didn't say, hey, everybody, you can come out, we'll send you these stickers or apply for these, whatever. They did a very little window where you could apply for a sticker to put on the board and in the rule book. And they said, right, if you want the corrected version, because we messed up here, but if you want the corrected version, you're going to have to back the next Kickstarter, and then you can get it in the next Kickstarter and pay for, again, what you've already got for the we messed up and say the wrong thing through. And the people, we as a public have accepted that. And it's the same with the rules. It's the same with inferior pieces or wrong pieces. And it creates a worrying trend, I think, that, we are setting the bar for ourselves.
Hopefully we don't go on too long about stuff that grinds our gears. So my next one is when a game doesn't come with a player aid. And it's not necessarily for me, because I play a lot of games. And just like I was talking about with the Flamecraft thing, like I get it. Or I could sit down and play the Backyard Chickens game with you right now because you played a deck builder. You get it. We could do that. But so like for my wife, she'll ask us, does it have a player aid? And if I say no, she's like, do I really have to play this with you? Can you find somebody else? Like and it's not, I mean, I don't know cost. Like I know everything's expensive right now, but
of course.
And I'm not talking about how like this on the back of the book, like that's lovely, but no, give me one for everybody. And I will say, I'm showing the back of the Omicron Protocol. They actually do have one for everybody. And it's actually very good, but just put that in there. And it's okay if you have to go reference something. Like I'm gonna pick this thing back up in this huge rules book, but it's okay if on the back of the small card it says, check line of sight or whatever, and then it could say page 47, or this is so big, probably page 1047, whatever. and I can go look it up if I don't know. But it's those little reminders, and then not having that is just,
It's worse for a solo gamer because even the ones that sometimes have player aids for multiplayer games don't have a bespoke solo one if they've got a solo mode. Not every game, some do obviously, and that can be a real issue as a solo gamer as well, because invariably the solo game will play differently as it does to the multiplayer game. So yeah, I get that. I absolutely get that. I get the cost implications of why sometimes publishers don't do it, and certainly given current manufacturing costs and shipping costs, etc., every penny counts, as you say. So yeah.
Well, what's your next one? I mean, and for everyone watching, listening, like it does sound like we're kind of crapping on the industry here. I mean, this is, as I said, this is just us being grumpy. I mean, to a point.
Yeah.
We're being grumpy, and we're speaking probably a bit more emphatically than maybe we really feel. But these are issues that are out there, and they do really bother some people. Like legitimately, my wife does not want to play a game with me if she can't have a player aid unless she's played it a lot. All right, but what's your next one, Mark?
I'm going to move away from the publishers and what they do, because overall they're under a lot of pressure, and there are a lot of great games out there, and I enjoy playing a lot of these great games as well.
And the vast majority of our interactions with publishers is good. I mean, the vast majority.
Yeah. I mean, vast majority. The ones that don't ever answer back, well, or promise stuff and don't deliver, then forget them.
I mean, to be fair, I assume when you talk to your kids, they don't answer back most of the time.
Well, absolutely, yeah. It's just something I'm used to as a middle-aged person. Absolutely. So yeah, I think the celebrity, and I use this in inverted commas because it by no means applies to us.
Or as we say here, air quotes. Could you give me a real big air quote for your celebrity, please? I mean, just so we get it. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, your celebrity. The celebrity of the board game reviewer. I think it's a little bit damaging, if anything. There's an over-reliance on certain review channels, and that can impact a game, and that's exactly what we do, of course. We're both we're kind of Z-list in what we do, but there is an over-reliance on the views and the viewpoints of a lot of reviewers. And I think there's two things that's happened. I think board game reviewers are potentially doing it wrong. And I think that people that watch board game reviews are doing it wrong as well. And I say that as a board game reviewer, as a part-time board game reviewer.
As a board game reviewer,
but I think that there is many times, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's times my audio's not right, or my video isn't right, or, I'm cramped for shooting conditions, or I may have got a rule incorrect, even after playing it 10 or so times, or whatever it is. But, I think you're going to touch on this, and I know Johnny Pack picked up on it, this reviewer drift thing as well, whereas board game reviewers, we fall under the fact that, we sometimes don't play games enough times to form not coherent, but a truly true position on a game. Now, that's many things. If I get a game to review and I don't like the game, I'm still going to play it 5 or 6 times. But I'm probably not going to play it more than that, because why put myself through something that I don't enjoy? But is it a truly kind of unbiased opinion of the game? No, it's a snapshot of a particular time. There's the air quotes again. But there is, you flip on that other side, and then you get people who, potentially, and people who consume board game reviews or review channels or preview channels or board game content, if you like, and they only listen to the word of a Tom Vassell or of a Quinns from Shut Up and Sit Down, because they think they speak their particular language, or they like their production values. So I think we're hitting this thing, whereas board game reviewers, we may not be doing people a service, because we get quite a lot of content. There's quite a consistent push to release a form of content that's going to garner more views, going to garner more people watching your stuff, which will then get more subscriptions, which will then make it a little bit bigger and make it easier to get more content to come through. Then there's the demand on the other side, and this. So I've released videos for older games, and barely anybody watches them. Nobody, is really that interested in a game that was released 2 years ago. What they are interested is in a game that was released, within the last 3 months, and then thinking about making a buying decision, because the board game market moves so very, very fast. So yeah, I feel that the kind of board game reviewers and the cult of the celebrity of some board game reviewers as well, I think that can be a little bit damaging to the industry.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing, right? Because on the one hand, I don't begrudge the reviewers that have 20, 30, 40,000, 100.
Absolutely
Like,
not at all.
no, nor do I begrudge. So we'll shut up, sit down, because I mean they're now the biggest YouTube channel in board games.
Yeah.
They I don't know, a couple months later they passed Dice Tower. Like, I don't begrudge that at all, and I don't begrudge people who are like,
No.
you know what, I don't listen to a lot of reviews, but you know, when I listen to Quinn's and Lee's and Tom, if they like something, I check it out. That's great.
Yeah.
I got zero problem with that. But I think where we start to agree to agree is when we start to get into the nerds like us who are
Yeah.
deep into the hobby, and when they're only relying on one of the, you know, the celebrities, you'll say, which again, I don't have a problem with. If you always find that you agree with Rado, great, you always agree with Rado. But it's
These
when
guys
we get,
work hard. Yeah.
yeah,
They
it's when we get,
deserve.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
it's when we get militant about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you put somebody and say, well, no, Rado liked it, so this is good. Or Rado didn't like it, so it's not. Like, there's other opinions.
Yeah.
You know, you may have them. And one of the things I'm always encouraging, I guess the part that does also grind my gears, is there are so many smaller reviewers out there that have opinions that are worth listening to. And
Yeah.
because they're going to highlight something different than the big times are. So, like, for example, you know, Shut Up and Sit Down, you're going to get a lot of comedy and performance
Yeah.
in what they're doing, and less of the, you know, nuts and bolts of what's going on.
Yeah.
When you have something like, like Rado, again, I like Rado, but you're only going to get it from a one-on-one perspective, two-player only perspective. When you're talking about, our friend Mr. Snotface, you're only going to get the co-op thing.
Yeah.
And so there's all, and which is great that there's all these niches out there. But I think the problem is that when we start seeing the deep hobby gamers, we start to think that these are the only voices that matter.
Yeah.
And they're not. And again, I'm not saying my voice matters.
Yeah.
But it does.
It's not what your wife says.
No. But to some people, my voice does matter.
Absolutely.
You know, they do listen to my voice, to my recommendations. And some people, you know, will think about, if you say a game's terrible, I don't want it. But it's when we get the people like, well, if they're not one of these big five, it doesn't matter. And that's where it bothers me. Like, you have a friend down the road that you go to the pub with all the time, you know, Johnny Williams. Like, there are going to be people who are like that have never heard of him, or, oh my gosh, I'm totally in sync with this guy. So I think it's the lack of promoting the others that are out there, or grabbing onto it. And there are some publishers that do, and I get it. Like, it's a numbers game. Like, if you're only going to get your video viewed 12 times, do I, as a publisher, want to send you a game? Because I mean, it's true. I only have to sell 3 games off your video to make that money back, or to profit. But you know, so it's there. I just think we don't do as good of a job promoting it. Yeah, everybody.
I think you're right. You know, this is, you say, not to take away, and this isn't salty in any way, because I'm quite happy with the level of success I've got, and you're happy with the level of success that you got for your channel. And
I'd be happier if I was above you, let me tell you.
Yeah. And then we both look up to Snotface and be like, forget it.
That is Mr. Snotface.
Mr. Arrogant Snotface. Sorry, and you know, the people that generally have lots of subscribers are people that do this full time, or you know, it's a massive part of their life, and they work bloody hard. You know, they work as hard as anybody else creating this stuff. But I just think that there's an over reliance on the cult of the celebrity of board game reviewers. I'd like to see more smaller reviewers. Like Luke Hector did a thing recently, which was support small creators. So his Broken Meeple channel's got 11, 12,000 subs, etc. And he did a series of, and is still doing them now, videos and collabs with smaller creators to promote these smaller creators. It would be nice to see some of that for some of the larger channels go right down to the people who've got less than 500 subs and say, actually, come on, let's give you guys a shout. Let's give you guys a lift. We don't see so much of that. And I'm guilty, I'm guilty. Yes, I'll reach out and speak to new creators and offer them advice, but maybe I should do more myself to help people who are where I was 2 years ago.
But and I think that's going to dovetails into the one that really gets me the most is trolling commenters.
Oh,
I just and the one that gets me, and for people who are watching and listening, I'm relatively, I come down relatively hard on over sexualization of women in games. Not and I point that out. If you want to have everybody over sexualized in your game, I got no problem with that. But it's when it's just women. I don't like that. And when a game totally misses the mark on diversity, I don't like that a lot either. And people are, whenever I talk about it, people are always popping up in the comments and get your
SJW this.
Yeah. But the one that gets me the most is when they talk about keep your opinion to yourself. Like
it's your channel.
It's literally a channel about my opinion. Like, what are you talking about?
If they don't agree with your opinion, then by all means go out, set up their own channel, call it Right Wing Board Games, whatever you want to call it, basically, and just go out there and spew your vile filth yourself. And it is your opinion. But nobody, right? Because the thing is, you're not even being offensive. And nobody is, and I certainly called out, lack of this or lack of that, and or celebrated it. You're not being offensive. All you're saying is this is an issue for me, and this is an issue I think the publisher or whoever should have thought about. But people take it so personally. This whole keep your politics out of board games. Well, sorry, but diversity isn't political. It's just a way of life right now, and we have to celebrate the fact that not everybody is cookie cutter the same. And, I think we just, the more people that understand that, it's not political just to be sensitive to how somebody feels. That's just being a human being. I don't get that argument, and I don't get it really. For whatever reason, it happens to you a lot when people will say, keep your opinions to yourself. I mean, I say that to you a lot. Mike says that to you a lot. But your wife says that to you a lot. But, but we got the right to say that, but that's right. People on your channel have no right.
Well, and it's interesting. And so the for me and for the people who are, considering commenting on a video, like I actually don't, I have zero problem when someone talks about why they don't think it matters or why it doesn't bother them. I got no problem with that. And I will engage that discussion regularly. Often I'll say, to me, this is why it now matters to me. I'm going to go and get on my soapbox here. If you can look up to me on my soapbox here. I'm talking about the diversity in games. And until, so my niece is African-American, and truth, like so many other people, I hadn't thought about it. I was like, well, whatever, I play a game, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But when it occurred to me, I was like, I want to be able to play a game with her where if she wants to play a character that resembles her so she can feel like she's a hero too, like that's not cool if she can't. But it was my personal experiences of what kind of opened my eyes to that. And so I get it how people want to talk about, well, I don't see why this matters, so I'll have that discussion with you. And I don't need to change your mind. So I'm fine with all of that. It's just when people get all trollish about it, which I'm doing better. Now I just remove the comment and move on because I don't need to have that. But boy, it's hard.
It is hard. But
I like to call on you, and then you often come in and give them floor.
And I think they sometimes know which buttons to press, and I think it's great to kind of walk away and be the bigger person or better person, but sometimes they say something so abhorrent that it needs redressing before the comment is removed. You just need to feel better that you've actually vented and said something against it, because there's no need to be abhorrent about this. And that saddens me. That people want to keep politics out of board games is just a ridiculous statement. But then get all political about why you shouldn't have made your comment, and well, political in their terms, about why you shouldn't have made your comment on X, Y, or Z, be it diversity or whatever. And it just saddens me. It really does sadden me. But as you say, we kind of, we try to rise above it a little bit. But I think, that's we've got a lot of our chests so far, and I'm sure we can sit there forever.
I mean, no, this is going to be the least listened to episode ever. But just on a fun thing, because we've been talking about, we dove a little deeper into the whole diversity thing, just because we were talking about negative. What are a couple of games off the top of if you have off the top of your head, that have nailed it on the diversity and representation? Because I got two right off the top of my head.
Okay. So the most recent one was the preview video I did for, or the game I did the preview video for recently, which was Distilled, which is on Kickstarter right now. It's doing stellar on Kickstarter. And this is a game about taking over a distillery and, making spirits. And, whiskey is a part of that. And traditionally, I should imagine a very male-dominated industry. And what you have is this wonderful cast of characters you can choose from, be that male, female. There's somebody who doesn't identify as their original gender, as the gender they were born with as well. Not quite clear if you can call them, if you can say trans at this point, but and I know there's further stuff being done. There's people of color, there's people of all nationalities representing what they do. Absolutely fantastic. Doesn't feel shoehorned in. Everybody's got a little bit of a backstory, be them historical figures or new figures, and it nails it. Absolutely nails it. They all have a slight little bit of asymmetry in terms of the signature dish that they do, but it's great to see this fascinating range of characters in a game about making spirits, which could have been populated by middle-aged white Scottish people. Basically, in terms of characters, you've got this full range of global characters covering every kind of every gender and non-specific gender, and people of color and people of different nationalities. Absolutely fantastic. What about yours?
All right, so I'll go with one I've been talking about all day, because it's literally right behind my computer. I'm looking at it. Omicron Protocol. It's just huge diversity across it, and also some body type diversity too, which I thought is very, very cool. And the other is a Guildmaster from Good Games Publishing, which is super pure fantasy, and it is total diversity. Some of the heroes are old dudes, like old people, all kinds of diversity. So those are the ones that come right. I mean, as I can look around and I can see several. They kind of tend to be the ones that I hold on to. Are those kind of games? All right. Anything else that grinds your gears?
No, and I think there is. Actually, I was going to say no, and then I'm going to say yes.
You were almost going to be the bigger man, but you decided
almost. But I think there's a reason that. No, well, there's an actual switch around point here. Is that what grinds my gears, and we are definitely part of this, and we've just had 20 minutes talking about it. Is the amount of negativity that happens in this hobby, because it's a pretty great hobby.
It's all right. I'll bleep you.
It brings out a lot of joy for a lot of people. It allows people to meet, obviously in non-COVID times. It allows people like us who've never met personally, who are 5,000 miles away, to converse and have similar ideas. And I think there is always a lot of negativity about the industry. And I think we need to, as an industry, focus on a lot of the positives that we have. We're certainly part of that problem. This last 20 minutes is part of that problem. I'd like to see a bit of a switch around into not for this conversation, not necessarily this conversation, but more about being positive about what this hobby does and how it brings to people. That is perhaps my biggest negative, and the biggest thing that grinds my gears is there's not enough positivity about what we do.
And I'm that's a fun thing that you brought up, because as reviewers, that's often something that people will say is like, oh, they're just giving just all these reviews are just positive. They must be bought, purchased, or whatever. And there's a lot of reviewers that just, if they don't like a game, they just don't talk about it. Like they follow that, if you can't say something nice,
and they don't say something at all. And
it's interesting, and it's people, sometimes complain about that, and I don't personally do that. I don't call it stuff I don't like, because I try to do it's just because I don't personally like it doesn't mean someone else won't. I call it quibbles. People who may whatever. But I mean, this is not. That idea of only talking about the positive is not unheard of. There was, I don't remember the guy's name, but a huge food critic who was a huge deal. He was famous like wearing a hat or something, but he would only I think he was one of the biggest food critics at least in America, but he would only review a place if he loved it. Period.
Right. Okay.
Like he would go places, and if he didn't think it was amazing, he didn't bother. He wasn't about telling you don't go to this place. He's like, oh, you're in Sheffield, go to this place. Here's why. I'm going to spend my time doing that. And I think, that's a very valid way of doing things, but there's that pushback that we're starting to see more of. There's starting to see a bit more pushback of people only being positive. And it's interesting because if you post something negative, it gets views. I can only assume that your video on Pendulum, which you came down pretty hard on, the solo mode. We don't have to dive into why. It's okay. I can see the veins sticking out.
I'm starting to get the sweats.
But I can only imagine that got a lot of views.
A lot of views, a lot of comments. Absolutely. Yeah. And my recent video on Sleeping Gods, which I didn't like. And admittedly, I entitled it provocatively, saying it's not me, it's definitely you in terms of Sleeping Gods. Again, that got a lot of views because I think that had almost been a victim of having overwhelming positive thoughts on it, and people were looking for an opposing viewpoint. But necessarily kind of highlighting why a game doesn't work for you is not about the negativity in the industry. I think that it's very rare these days that we get through a week in board gaming without some form of crisis happening somewhere, without somebody upsetting somebody, or somebody said something and some of it absolutely needs to be called out. It's not about doing that, but that becomes the focus. And what we don't celebrate enough within board gaming is all the positives that happen. We have cons starting back up, and with all these cons starting back up, people absolutely, if you're not comfortable in going, then please don't go and what have you. But there are people who want to go and people who think it's okay for them to go. And therefore, let's not try to piss on their strawberries too much. Let's try and celebrate. Yeah, it's not for me this year, but for you, fine, go and have a great time. And I hope you're safe through it. And I hope that this happens and that doesn't happen. We see, and that's it. I don't mind critiquing stuff, but I think there's an overwhelming, and it is a perfectly natural thing for everybody to focus on the negative, look at the next crisis that's happening. And we really should need to be celebrating. You mentioned diversity, and we've come a long way in a relatively short space of time. There's still a long journey to have on diversity in board games. But we should, instead of just calling out it not happening in games, we should also be celebrating those games where it does happen. I'd like to hear more noise about games where it does happen. I'm not saying we quell the noise on games where it doesn't happen, but let's celebrate the ones where it does happen more.
Yeah, that's why what occurred to me, was, well, hey, let's talk about a couple. And it's interesting because when I do so, Guildmaster, it's one of the things that I praise very highly is the art and the cast of characters. I don't think I got a single comment about it.
Right.
Outside of, I think the publisher said, thank you for noticing. We worked really hard on it, something like that. But nobody talks about it. But yes, I think you're right. I mean, and I think in some ways, the more we can highlight the good, that is also a condemnation of the bad. Because if suddenly, 10 dungeon crawlers come across your table, and in 9 of them, you keep saying, oh my gosh, they nailed the diversity and the representation, and they've done all these things that is really the direction that we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And then you don't say it about one.
Yeah.
It's like you come into the room, you're like, oh my gosh, Michael Kelly, it's so good to see you. Oh, Don, oh my gosh, I love what you do. Oh, I love you guys. Shut up and sit down. Okay, that's great. And you sit down, and I'm also at the table.
Yeah, but I mean, you're used to that now, obviously.
It happens
everywhere.
True.
Yeah.
So we have ground our gears. Basically, we've been whining middle-aged
grumpy old men.
Is what we've done. Fun, cathartic, but we actually do have a game that we're going to talk about.
I forgot we were going to do that. Yeah. Okay.
I know, right? And we picked one that we're both pretty high on. And now a word from our sponsor. Are you tired of getting set for your digital game night and finding out you just don't know how to work the program? You do everything you can think of. You struggle. You give it your best, yet at the end of the day, it's just hopeless. You feel like you'll never be able to digitally game again. But don't worry. There is a solution. With the Sovereignty digital gaming platform, it's no trouble at all to almost immediately get right into the game and play with all of your friends. No fuss, no muss, no figuring out what keys do what. Just pure fun. Play smarter. We get to start being positive now for the most part, and that is Hadrian's Wall. And for anybody who doesn't know, Hadrian's Wall, flip and write game where you have two pieces of paper in front of you with 57 million boxes on it. And as you flip over your cards, you're going to get resources in the form of different types of people. You have your citizens, you have soldiers, you have servants, there's another one, the yellows, whatever the yellow ones are.
Yeah,
artisans, maybe.
I can't remember. Maybe I can't remember. Yeah,
I don't know. So something like that. And you have stone, and you're going to be spending these to fill in bubbles. And as you fill in bubbles or boxes, it'll unlock stuff and give you more stuff. And then you use that stuff to keep buying stuff. And you play over the course of 5 years, 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. So 6 rounds. And as you go through, you'll be getting various in-game scoring conditions that are true only for your specific game that you're playing. And then there's some in-game scoring conditions already on the board. And it's a high score wins kind of game, playable solo or in the box up to 6 players. But truth be told, if you have the components, there is absolutely zero reason you couldn't play it infinite number.
Ad infinitum. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so that's the game. Hit me with it. What do you think?
You see, I think like most people, when you look at the game of Hadrian's Wall, and you see those 2 large pads laid out.
And I mean, to be fair, you were there at the wall when it was really built, so you understand.
Well, of course I was. Being the age I am and from the vicinity, I am absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, you look at these 2 pads that come out, and they are daunting. You have 2 pads of 8 million check boxes each, and you think you have absolutely no way on God's green earth of understanding how this game is going to play.
So you mean in green hell?
In green. A nice tie back to the game earlier. Yeah, you see. Yeah, I see what you did there. However, when we talked about rule books earlier, I want to mention Hadrian's Wall rulebook. Hadrian's Wall rulebook. It's a really good rulebook. Literally walked me through every column and every icon on those 2 pages, and does walk you through. It says, right, this does this, and therefore it leads to that. And within one read of the rule book, going through this, I knew how to play the game. A little bit of referencing, only a very little bit of referencing, and then that's it.
And your first game or two, you made a couple of mistakes, I'm sure. It's a lot. But not because you didn't understand, you just missed it.
Yeah, just missed it, and exactly right. And I think there's nothing wrong with making mistakes in games. That's how I generally learn how a game is played properly. I'll get it right maybe 70, 80, 90% time. 90% of the first play of the game. Probably same with Hadrian's Wall. But it's not a complex game. It looks complex, but it's not. And I think what it really, really does is it looks like a spreadsheet exercise, but it's not a spreadsheet exercise. It's a masterclass in a tight kind of flip and write, resource management, resource allocation. Is it worker placement or is it action selection? Let's call it worker placement, this one. Yeah. Kind of worker placement. And it just works so well. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's a 40-minute game, maybe, as a solo player, 30, 40-minute game.
Yeah, and after you've played enough, like sometimes I play in 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why your scores are terrible. Yeah.
Excuse me. I scored 86 points last time I played. Thank you very much.
There we go. Yeah, so that is the lowest.
How did I do that? I just wrote 86 on the pad. So the thing that really, I'm not huge into blank and write games in general. They just have never really excited me.
Yep.
There is, even in Merchant's Cove, one of the games I really like, it has a roll and write character. in there, and,
Right.
I've played it several times. It's not my favorite character. It's just not my style of thing.
Yeah.
But what makes this one to me so much fun is I called it the perpetual motion machine. Is you're spending your resources and you're going up these different tracks, and as you're going up the tracks, it's giving you more resources that you get to keep spending, and you have these great moments where you may look on the right side. So, well, I could just spend one of my yellows right here and get this one thing, which will get me something in the game. Or I could spend this yellow on a totally different track on this side, which is going to get me a blue guy. And if I use the blue guy over here, that's going to get me a stone.
Yeah.
And if I use that stone up here, that's going to get me a purple guy. And if I use the purple guy up here, it's going to give me another stone. I can take that stone, put it back down here. It's just me another yellow guy, which now I can go put where I started.
And that's it.
I don't care who you are. That's fun.
Yeah, you string those moves together, and it does hit you like that. You crack the code for that one move, and you're suddenly doing, your 14 different actions. You feel like Einstein, and that's the great thing. Somebody as stupid as me can feel like Einstein playing a game like Hadrian's Wall, because suddenly I think, how is this happening? And you just know you're linking everything together, and the longer that you play in the game, so as you're in your kind of second, third, and fourth year, the more of the board is opening up for you, because you've unlocked, either further along the wall or certain specialities at the entertainment district, or you're fighting gladiators, and it just gives you that great feeling. I think that's it. Is it looks like a spreadsheet, but the amount of satisfaction that it grants you is great. Make no mistake, it's a solitaire multiplayer game. So even if you are playing it with others, you're playing very much your own game. Yeah. But that means that everybody you're playing with is going to be having this same great experience. At least once in every game, you're like, I'm a genius. I am an actual genius.
And I like what you said, it makes you feel smart, because every now and then I play games where I'm like, man, I feel dumb.
Yeah.
Like, don't make me feel like reality.
Yeah.
And that does happen sometimes, but it doesn't happen in this one. And I'm glad you mentioned the multiplayer solitaire, because it absolutely is. There is a tiny bit of interaction. A tiny bit of how you can use something from a player on your right and your left. A little bit. And you do at the end of each round, you do all look up, because you all have the same barbarians.
The Picts going on.
Yeah, which I assume you just Wales. Is that what's going on? Wales is invading?
Oh, man. Okay. Yeah. Wales would invade Scotland. Man, your geography is terrible. Yeah.
Well, hey, look, all right. Yeah, you're probably the type of person who's like, oh, you're from America? Oh, do you know my friend in Mississippi? No,
you do.
I don't. You realize we could fit 12 of your UKs in California, but so you do all kind of look at the same time, and you kind of deal with that. And there is a fun moment there as that's happening, and you're having the barbarian cards invade. As kind of around the table, people are like, yes, and then someone's like, no, how can 5 come to the right side at once?
Yeah.
And that one person who's like, I'm going to go right, because right is right. And you're like, you're an idiot. And they just put, and they're fine. So there is that moment, but it is multiplayer solitaire. What it does do on the negative side is the first few times you play, it's a bizarrely silent table. And I know you've only played solo.
Okay.
But
but
after you've played a few times, you're able to start doing that, because where stuff is, and you're doing those actions. You can have conversations. You're having, just talking about whatever and enjoying yourself while you're doing it. Just every now and then you're like, oh wait, this is my moment. This is my genius moment. Hold up, people. I gotta do this thing. And then you come back. Yeah.
Have you noticed? Have you seen that they've just released the solo campaign for it as well, which I just think is fantastic, because if anything, that is my one complaint about the game, is that because as you say, you can play it 20, 30 minutes, it sometimes feels like it's over too quickly, like I'm building something up. So they just released online a solo campaign, which now allows you to play however many games you want on the trot, and see whether you succeed at that. Not giving it a crack yet, but I will do at some point, definitely.
Yeah, it's sitting in my to print dummy files where it's sitting. It's it's very clever. And the solo campaign, from what I've looked at, it's if you accomplish certain things, then you start the next game with something another.
That's right.
It's also a bizarrely portable game, and you wouldn't think this, but you do have to kind of put in a little work. So I laminated the sheets, and when I just went on a trip, I didn't take that whole box. I just took some of the meeples and stuff and the cards and dry erase marker, and I just put them in a tiny bag and was able to travel with it. But on the flip side of it, it's an expensive game for, in theory, what you're getting, because you're paying for a lot of pads of paper, which, hey, I'm all for. I think it's a $45 game. And, you're getting 2 decks of cards, I don't know, 40
few wood meeples. Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And then the rest of it's just paper. So
paper and board, a little bit of board.
Yeah. It's a little bit pricey, but I don't know. For me, I mean, hey, $40 is $40, but still.
So I think you look at that, and then this is where the value of the game is not necessarily what you're getting in terms of components. It's what went in to make that game. And that has obviously had a lot of thought, a lot of balancing, a lot of money's been spent in terms of play testing, making sure that everything pans out as it should. All that has got to be recouped from somewhere. Now, that really works because the game is bloody good. Yeah, and it absolutely works. I don't feel cheated by the game in any way, shape, or form. It feels like, like some games, and certainly when you play them solo, you feel like the solo is a bit of a cheat. It's not necessarily the same in Hadrian's Wall, because you're kind of playing against the game itself. So I can understand why although it's not an expensive game, I can understand why it's slightly more expensive than you think it would be, given the components you get, because of the amount of thought and development that went into getting it to that phase. So I don't begrudge them that at all.
No, it's also a dangerously heavy box.
Yeah, those pads weigh a lot.
It's bizarrely heavy. It's got, I don't know, 200 pages of each of these 2 big old pads. But yeah, so it sounds like, we knew this going in, but we're both pretty high on it. And I'm also going to throw out, I've played this game over Zoom with other folks.
Okay.
Just,
it works.
It takes a little bit of setup to, make sure you have it set up to where you can kind of see what the card is, but it plays perfectly well over Zoom. It's portable. I don't know. I'm a big fan of it. I think everyone out there, if you've never played a roll and write game or whatever and write game, this is the one to get. It's just
and don't be put off. It's nowhere near as daunting as it actually looks. It's actually a pretty straightforward game to play, and the rule book is fantastic.
I highly recommend. Don't look at a picture of the board before you buy it.
No, definitely not.
No, you look at it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just like when I sat it down to in front of my wife to play, because I knew she'd like it. She really does. And she looked at it and she was like, "What is this?"
It's a spreadsheet.
I was like, "No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine." I was talking to a friend about it the other day who likes it a lot too, and he's like, "Yeah, it's like a old accounting spreadsheet. I'm playing old accounting."
It can be fun for people. No, it is a great game, well designed, nice and thematic, and the playtime. It's just not a game that outstays its welcome. I really, really, really liked Hadrian's Wall. In fact, I think after we finish this tonight, my wife's got some friends around. I may have a game of Hadrian's Wall tonight.
You could take it out and introduce it to all of them and play a competitive game.
No. My wife's got her friends around tonight. I'm going to be a miserable solo gamer and be in a room on my own.
Drinking your Budweiser?
Still here, still room temperature. Yeah, still unopened.
Come on. But
now.
Speaking of overstaying our welcome, it's possible that we have overstayed our welcome on this.
You're king of segues.
I know, right? I am the Paul Blart of board game review.
Well,
for anybody who doesn't get that reference, you don't need to. It's not a good movie.
No.
But so leave us with your words of gaming wisdom, and they can't be the same ones as last time.
I can't remember what I said last time, so I can't.
You can't remember what you said an hour ago.
This is true. Yeah. I do think that I'm going to harken back to what we were saying earlier. Is it's an inherent human trait for us all to be slightly negative, but let's try to focus on the massive amount of positivity that we get out of this hobby. I do personally, even as a solo player predominantly, but the interaction with the community, the interaction with publishers, just speaking to people and knowing that people are getting a massive sense of enjoyment out of these games. Let's try and focus on that more, less on the things that are the crises that happen, etc. And I think we'll start, because it's been a pretty shitty year for everybody, pretty crappy 18 months or so. And, everything's starting to open up now. Games are starting to move forward. Yes, they're a little bit expensive because of shipping, etc. Cons are starting to happen. Let's start to celebrate the positivity as we move forward. I'd like to see at least 1 month of board game positivity.
With the exception of the last hour that we just talked about, all the stuff that bugs us.
You've got to get it off your chest somehow. Yeah, and then you can move on to the focus. Yeah.
And that's true. So don't be silent about the things that bug you, but try to balance them with good stuff too.
Yeah.
Go play something fun.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, you can find a link to Not Board Gaming down in the description of the YouTube video or the podcast, however you're consuming this content. It'll be down there. Make sure you subscribe if you are the type to do that kind of thing. Also, make sure you leave a couple of slightly controversial comments and you'll get a full-on, very British, only half comprehensible rant back at you. It's always very fun. Sometimes I have to ask, like, what does this even mean? But make sure you go for that. As always, everybody, thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, we should probably actually start.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you got. It's embarrassing for you. I'm glad you got that. Let me go grab mine. It's just finished brewing.
Although I'm British, I don't drink tea. I can't stand the stuff.
Well, it's good because you have the beer that, though I'm American, I can't stand that stuff.
It's warm. It's been in my room for a while. It's warm.
Well, I'm looking forward to you drinking it.
Yeah, I'm not. So
let's talk about Hadrian's Wall.
Wow. That's covering all different levels of offense right there,
right,
isn't
it? No, go ahead. Tell me, let's talk about Hadrian's Wall and your best American. Or your worst American.
Let's talk about Hadrian's Wall, man.
Wow, that's like a mix of John Wayne and Sean Penn from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, dude, let's talk about Hadrian's Wall, man.
I can do a little Bert from Mary Poppins.
Hello, Governor.
Pip, pip, cheerio. What?
Let's play goddamn Hadrian's Wall, I'm telling you.